let's hop into another session here at the lovely Commerce Casino, the friendliest casino in Los Angeles. Self-proclaimed, that's a lie. Guys, today feels like a blast from the past, almost like deja vu, but without giving away too much, I promise you this is not an episode to miss. Buckle up for an insane roller coaster of events. Today's episode is by far, hands down, one of the best episodes from the Commerce to date. Either way, let's hop into this very first hand. Starting off slow, starting off light, but like I said, we've got to adjust your palate for what the hell's coming. Anyways, in this very first hand, I'm in the big blind, under the gun limps, recreational player, middle position, button, limp as well. And I find myself in the big blind with ace-3 offsuit. Maybe if there was only one or two limpers, I could sometimes consider isolating with the ace blocker here, but I'll take my chances post-flop, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and make the check here and go off to a flop. That comes ace-7-4 rainbow. We flop top pair, which is great, but in these cash games, especially in the Commerce 1500 max, it's not appalling or something that's not usual for somebody to be limping like ace-10 and like ace-5, ace-4 suited randomly. So, you know, a little wary at least. Anyways, when I check it over to the initial limper, it actually ends up checking all the way through, which is pretty nice. Makes me feel comfortable with my holding. In the turn card comes a deuce, bringing the full rainbow out there. We now pick up a little bit of extra equity with a straight draw, as well as the simple fact that, you know, this is a pretty good board and specifically a run out for my exact holding. We can start betting here sometimes, but at this exact juncture, again, considering I'm in the worst position in poker, or the second worst, I'm out of position everyone here in the big blind. So I'm going to play this cautiously and decide to check it over. The recreational limper under the gun decides to bet out here for $40, which is the size of the pot, pretty big bet. Everyone folds and I call. Again, pot sizing, you know, bet strength relative to pot sizing in relation to recreational players isn't like 1-1 most of the time. Like, just because he bet the size of the pot, like he could have just been betting whatever with whatever hand and just been happy with the bet. I don't think it's something to read into. Either way, we're going to be going off to river after I make the call. That comes the 6 of spades. Sure, brings that 5-6 in that was available, but doubt that my opponent's going to be betting, you know, whatever gut shot, if that was like 8-5 or whatever the gut shot may be, for such a large sizing. So at this point is where I mess up in the hand. It's more than likely that my opponent has some kind of showdown value, or at least some form of value. And the question is, how often is it an ace that's better than mine? Because every one of them is better than mine, even ace deuce, obviously. Or how often is it like a middling pair or just like pocket tens or pocket nines that just played it weird? Again, that's very common for the Commerce. I decided to check it over to my opponent, allowing him to bluff, as I think maybe he can have a bluff sometimes. But like I said, the only bluff that's feasible is a straight draw that got there on the river. So I think this river is a mandatory bet and fold to raises. Whatever, alas, I check it over to my opponent. He snap checks it back with 8-7. We end up losing a ton of value there on the river. Not saying that he would have called, but the point is that we should have bet because we were probably going to get called. But either way, c'est la vie. Let's go on to the next hand. Moving right along, I think in this session it's important to stay aggressive. My table has quite a few recreationals, and yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Either way, moving on to this very next hand. Middle position makes it $30, and that is a young Japanese pro. Folds over to me in the small blind. We look at down at ace-10 offsuit. If I'm playing this hand out of position, I want to play this hand aggressively. It plays better as a 3-bet than I think as a call out of position, so I make it $130 to go. Folds back to the opponent. He makes a call. We're going off to a flop. That comes king, king, queen, rainbow. At first glance, I'm like, okay, not the best thing ever, but there's a very important thing in poker, and that's understanding ranges, especially post-flop, specifically middle position versus small blind, 3-bet, out of position, yada, yada, yada. Don't need to bore you guys with that. My opponent's almost always going to be 4-betting queens plus here, so I think we can discount, for the most part, pocket queens, pocket kings, and pocket aces. Sure, our opponent can definitely still have ace-queen, but beyond that, I just don't see him having a ton here besides specifically king-queen and ace-queen. And again, less likely of that being the case because those cards are already out there. I can either down bet here on the flop and maybe check turn and bet river to simplify some like marginal value, or I can just go bomb, 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 bombs away. That seems like what I'm going to be doing today. After a little bit of thinking, I decide that I'm going to be going 3 streets no matter what happens. If a jack comes out, great. I make the nut straight. If an ace comes out, maybe I'll slow down a little bit. But yeah, we're going to be going bombs away. I decide to bet $150 to go, and the opponent goes actually deep into the tank for a flop decision. At this point, I'm pretty happy about my decision. And as long as I don't get raised on any of the streets, I feel like I've done the right thing by going with the bombs away. Anyways, my opponent decides to inevitably make the fold, which we're always ecstatic about, and that'll bring us to the very next hand, which is a freaking fairly crazy one. One of the most important things in poker is just not trapping yourself. It's kind of when you play things too slow against recreational players, I can promise you playing hands faster almost always works better, but let's not get ahead of myself. This next hand's an interesting one. Under the gun makes it $30 to go. The middle position player makes a call, and I find myself in the small blind, and I look down at pocket jacks. I'm pretty much in autopilot mode here, and I decide to just make the call. There's merit in both raising and just calling here. Under the gun ranges are significantly stronger than if my opponent was raising from late position or even middle position. But under the gun, I think we can respect. In the middle position, you know, call is just irrelevant to me at this point. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I feel like because there's a middle position player that calls, we are more incentivized to 3-bet. There should be more of a reason for me to get this pot heads up, even though I'm out of position. But alas, I find myself in a situation where that is not the case. The big blind makes a call as well, and we're going 4 ways off to a flop that is majestic. Jack 6 deuce with 2 clubs and a spade. Ta-da. Flopping top set in a 4-way pot. This is a really dangerous spot to be in. The action checks all the way over to the middle position caller, and it actually ends up checking through. Okay, pretty interesting. Turn card comes a king of clubs, bringing in that front door flush. Not really bad. I don't really mind that too much. I feel like the initial raiser, at the very least, if he had a flush draw, would be betting it for the most part. And maybe one of my other opponents might have a flush. I think the most worried one I'd be of is a big blind. Otherwise, I feel like it's easy sailing. I end up making a pretty big bet here for $100. Folds over to the initial raiser, who thinks about it for a moment before deciding to call. And then we get another tank here from the middle position caller, who eventually decides to fold. And we're going off to a river card that seems pretty innocuous, as it's an 8 of spades. So pretty happy that we faded the 4th club. That was something to be worried about. But for the most part, like I said, I feel like I have a pretty easy bet pot, and consider calling a raise if need be. But for the most part, I think our job here is to bet the size of the pot and try to get away from it if we get raised for some reason, which again I think is just not even in the card of things. After a little bit of thinking, I decided to bet $325, as we mentioned, going near the size of the pot. With the action over to the initial raiser, he thinks about it for a moment before deciding to make the jam all in. He has me covered. The jam is for over $1,650 total, right around $1,330 more for me to call. And I'm sick to my stomach. And this is officially the longest tank I've ever been in my entire poker career. I think it was 3 minutes I was in the tank, and it was so bad that I felt really, really bad for my table mates. And I showed them my cards, and I asked for forgiveness because this was a tough spot. But I think what I'm thinking at the time is that what flushes can check or just call the turn, excuse me, and check the flop. I think the only ones I can really think of are like ace x of clubs, like a nut draw where you're okay with doing that. I feel like any 7 high random like cards like that, non-nutted flush draws, would be incentivized to bet the flop, especially if you're the initial raiser. But again, it's just hard for me to get into the mind of a recreational player. I'm just not all there, I think, at the moment. I had a plan. It was so clear. I bet big and fold to all jams. And I feel like after going to the tank, you know, think long, think wrong. My head is telling me make the fold, make the hero fold. But my heart is saying if you fold, no one will ever believe you if you made a good fold. I'll get shredded for making the fold. I'll get shredded for making the call. The question now becomes, can my opponent ever value jam worse? The only hand in the possible realm of things that could possibly jam that's worse is maybe deuces and maybe pocket eights if he somehow ended up on the river with that. I don't think king jack is ever doing that. So just this, especially in hindsight, it feels like such an easy fold here. And that's why this is your chat pro hand of the day. So I'm going to let you guys, before I let you guys know what I do, I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds. Let us know in the comment section down below, what the heck do you do here? Well, I hope you guys picked the right answer for yourselves, but I end up making the call for all in here, and my opponent does in fact show me the nuts straight to my face. Ace 4 clubs makes total sense. He has no reason to raise the turn there. He would be overplaying his hand, and he played the hand well, and I played it like an idiot. So good hand to you, sir. It just wasn't my turn to win today, I suppose. All good though. Moving right along, middle position, recreational, OMC-ish type player decides to limp here for 10 bucks. Folds to me in the small blind, and we look down at ace-queen offsuit. Feels like a pretty easy spot to just isolate, which we do. We make it $50 to go. The limper decides to make the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes jack 4-3 with 2 hearts and a diamond. The action starts with me. I'm going to continue to c-bet here for $40 or $45, excuse me. Feels like a good range advantage for my, hand here, although granted, 4s, 3s are all in my opponent's range. I can still have the pocket jacks, ace jack, king jack, all those holdings. Not that it matters against an OMC, boring you guys saying all of that, but that's what I do. OMC makes a call, and we're going off to a turn card that comes a deuce of clubs. Okay, now we pick up a gut shot, so I think this is an okay card to continue to barrel on. Get him to fold all his middling pairs, 7s, 6s, 8s, those kind of random holdings, which he's shown the propensity to limp in the past. I decide to make the bet of $85, and my opponent thinks about it for a moment before cutting out a call, and then adding 200 chips to it. $285 is a new price of poker. Considering I still have what I would presume to be 2 live overs, as well as a gut shot to what would be, it feels like, the essential nuts here, I end up making a pretty sticky call here. Don't try this at home. This is a pretty spewy call, but I'm pretty tilted at this point. Lost the last hand, so why not fix that error by making yet another one? Anyways, we're going off to a river card that does not improve us in any way, as it comes the 9 of hearts here. I don't even think about bluffing. I'm just super over this hand. I check it over to my opponent. He snap checks it back, and he shows pocket deuces. So ends up turning the set there. Good on him. Pretty obvious and face up that these players had me beat. I should have just got out of the way. But at this point, it is more than overdue that I go on a walk, use a restroom, grab some snacks, and let's start over to me now and see what the heck's going on in my head.
All right, I needed to get away. As you guys saw from that ace-queen hand, I'm just losing my mind right now. I'm just frustrated. Things are not working out in our favor. It's always frustrating flopping top sets and finding a way to lose. So mid-session update is going to be pretty short and simple. Pretty much for me to tell you guys that, man, I wanted to fold so bad with the jacks hand. I took the longest tank I've ever tanked for in my poker career by far. I almost found the fold, but I feel like if I fold and then people are just going to think I'm a nit for folding, and then, I don't know, whatever the case may be. Should have found the fold, and we didn't end up doing that anyways. So the game is still really good. So I've sat here, I've come outside, I've talked to you guys in this exact same spot talking about how we're going to run it back up. But I promise you I will. When I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. We're going to put that aside. I'm going to freaking sit down. I'm going to man up. I'm going to find a way to double up, triple up, whatever the hell needs to happen. I'm going to play some really good poker. I promise myself that. We got the crappy poker out of the way. We used the restroom. We got our snack. We're out here now. I'm talking to you guys. Let's run up a stack, man. Come on. Let's lock in, man. Let's go.
Okay, whether you believe that walking away from the table resets the deck or just resets the mojo, the vibes, the white magic, whatever makes you sleep better at night, let's go ahead and go with that. Either way, we have reloaded our stack. We are into this game for piles, $4,000 to be specific. I find myself in a pretty interesting spot where under the gun, the same player from the last hand decides to limp once again. This time, middle position, nittiest nit at the table by miles, has played 2 hands in the last several hours. That is not an exaggeration. He makes it $50 to go. We're looking down, pretty much, autopilot fold, until we look down at an ace, followed by another ace. This is what dreams are made of. We've got aces in a spot against the biggest nit at the table and the biggest, limp caller at the table. There's no reason to get cute here. My opponent is never bluffing, literally. Middle position is just never bluffing. And that's the point. So I make it $150 as a 3-bet to go. Folds back over to him, so we lose that first limp caller, but that's all right. And he decides to 4-ball it to $525, leaving himself about $1,100 or $1,200 behind. This is what dreams are made of. He's never doing this as a bluff. I repeat, he's never doing this as a bluff. But that doesn't matter. We have aces. So I go in between. Do I want to just call here? Do I want to just jam here? Do I need to have a balanced 5-bet range? And the answer to these questions is no. Hell no. This guy has a good hand. He's going to call me whether I jam, whether I min click him. It doesn't matter. Like, we're going to get the money all in. He's too tight to be doing this as a bluff. And I don't think he's good enough to let go of queens plus. So I end up jamming it all in, having him covered. He snap calls here. We're going out to a run out, as you guys can see. That is not great for either one of us, and if that's the case, I'm usually the winner with aces. I quickly announce my hand, and he's disgusted and shows pocket kings. So all it took for us was not to play good poker and get it all in a massive cooler situation and hold. It feels great to finally pull a pot in my direction. Can't say I played this very well. The one thing I'm happy with that I didn't waste anybody's time with is that I realized that this guy's just never folding, and I didn't have to get cute with this hand. There's a small chance that we go to a flop, and he can still get away from it sometimes on the run out, but either way, happy with that outcome. Finally heading in the right direction. Almost break even once again. Let's continue to live off the hype. Let's go. Moving right along with today's session, I'm going to cut off with Queen 5 suited here. Not a great hand, but it is suited, and I'm going to be in position for the most part unless the button calls. So I make it $30 to go. The small blind and the big blind both make the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes Queen 4 Queen Rainbow. Well, that's a good flop for a pretty, mediocre holding. Flopping trips here when the action checks over to me. I feel like this is a great spot to balance yourself, and I talk about this a lot. It's really nice to have a check back as strong as this, considering I'm going to have better queens here, like ace queen, queen jack. Those are holdings that I don't mind just betting sometimes, but with the weaker queen, I feel like balancing here seems like a good idea. I check it back, going off to a turn card that comes the 6 of hearts. This now brings a backdoor flush draw, which is, something of note, especially when the young Japanese pro decides to lead out here from the small blind for 40 bucks. A little bit on the larger sizing here, going somewhere in the realm of half pot. Folds over to me, and I have a couple of decisions. Do I just call here? Do I raise here? Is this where we spring the trap? And I think that I'm leaning towards raising at this point. There's now a couple of different draws that we do have to worry about. Straight draws, flush draws, as well as maybe some sticky ace highs and middling pairs that just won't believe me either way. We've been giving a ton of action here, as you guys always know. So I make it $140 to go. At this point, it gets back over to that player who goes deep, deep into the tank. Feels like a minute goes by before he eventually decides to make the fold. Unfortunate there. Feels like, I guess, just calling might have been okay, or maybe raising to a little smaller, maybe $100 or $110 might have done the trick, but either way, that is where we're at now. We're going to have to live with it and continue on trekking along in today's session, hoping to break past the even point as we're getting close. A couple more really interesting hands to go over, so like I said, get ready for the latter half of today's episode. In this following hand, we have Ace King under the gun, big slick. We love the energy. I decide to make it $30 to go, plus 2, which is, like I said, the action player we've been playing with so far makes a call. The big blind makes a call as well. We're going off to a flop that comes 7, 6, deuce, rainbow. Pretty, it's just a bad flop. I think that's it. We can leave it at that. The interesting thing here is that the big blind decides to lead out for $30. Well, considering I still have overpairs in my range, and the simple fact that any ace or king is probably good here, like 100% of the time, it feels like, I end up making the call here. Ace high is just ridiculous to be folding immediately. There's still some straight draws and some random junk out there that we're ahead of. Surprisingly, the plus 2 player decides to make the call here as well, putting him on some sort of middling pair here by making the overcall. We're going off to a turn card that comes a 4 of spades. Brings a backdoor flush draw. Checks over to me. Going to go ahead and be doing nothing but checking here. The middle position player decides to check as well. And we're going off to a river card that comes a 10 of clubs. Okay, We don't improve here, and there's no reason to, you know, make any random bluffs at it. The hands that I was ahead of, like 9-8, are now better than me. So with the big blind leading off here for a $30 blocker bet, it's a pretty easy just fold. But wait, there's a reason why I'm picking this hand to show in the vlog. Our opponent here from the middle position, or the +2 position, thinks about it for a moment before throwing in the call. The big blind shows 8-7, so played that fairly well. Got max value there, even found a way to get thin value on the river, which I like. And the player from +2 shows 9-6 offsuit. I raised from under the gun. Like I said, we're in a good game, so let's try to capitalize on it. We can still get unstuck. We're in for like 3 buy-ins, but that's never stopped me before from getting out of the hole. So let's put our bootstraps on and let's really go for it. The second to last hand is a fun one, and it has a pretty big live tell that you guys are probably familiar with, but if you haven't already known, it's probably important to start utilizing it or seeing or looking for it. We find ourselves in the cutoff, bored to death, haven't played a hand in what feels like an hour. We look down at 7 deuce of diamonds. I don't know, I play 7 deuce game by myself. There's obviously not one going on right now, but I raised to $30. Like I said, going to be in position for most of the time here. The player to my left has just not shown any likely or wanting to battle with me, 3-bet me, or whatever, so sounds like a good idea. Anyways, the small blind makes a call. We're going heads up against our foe, our adversary of today's session. That comes ace-10, 2 clubs, and a diamond. Horrible flop for our hand, but pretty reasonable for our, at least, range here. We should have some form of range advantage. The opponent starts off with a check. I see bet for 25 bucks. He pretty quickly makes a call. We're going off to a turn card that comes a queen of spades. All right, doesn't really help us in the slightest, but I can't stop betting now. We're, again, representing a pretty narrow range if we go 2 bets here. With the action checked over to me, there's still a ton of flush draws that are out there, and I don't block any of them, so I feel like betting here is not horrible, but we've got to be able to bet 3 streets if need be. I decided to bet $80, and without even being able to put the chips out fast enough, it feels like this opponent snap calls. And as you guys know, if you guys haven't been taught this already, this is one of the clearest indications for a weak holding or a draw here. It's just something about human psychology, the way your mind works. If you're on a draw, you just want to get to the next card as quick as possible and you're over with it. It's just how this works for whatever reason. It works sometimes, you know, don't go to the bank and pull out a loan against this or leverage your house against this. But like I said, more than not, especially at the 5-10 level, the 2-5 level, this seems to hold true. Going to be barreling any river card pretty much. Just want to go blasting off here. I can feel like my opponent has some form of a flush draw or a really weak 10 holding here, like 9-10. We're going off to a river card that is literally the worst card in the deck. It comes at 10 of hearts. So sure, the flush misses, but the board is double paired. And now we actually beat, you know, or at least chop with a ton of the holdings that I think my opponent has. So I feel like bluffing here would be suicide. It's just like the hands that we do put him on, like a 10 here, now make a boat. He's not folding that. And if he happens to have like queen jack here, he's probably not folding that either. So when he checks it over to me, I wave the white flag and check it back. He says that he missed and shows 6-4 of clubs. We end up taking half of this pot down as we show 7 high. So I guess we were bluffing with the best hand. Either way, gonna go ahead and chalk that one up to luck. I really don't know. It's unfortunate because I was winning the pot on any run out that wasn't a club or a 10, I guess. I was gonna blast off. So, you know, it is what it is. We're gonna go and take it. It's better than him hitting a club and me blasting off. So either way, happy with that hold, with that situation. Let's move on to the craziest hand of the session, or at least one of the second craziest hands. And welcome everyone to the very last hand of today's very long vlog. I thank you guys all for being here. I'm going to ask you guys for a massive favor before we go any further. If you guys would do me the honor and clicking that like button, it goes such a freaking long way in continuing to grow our channel. As the WSOP seems to pass by, I beg you guys, if you guys can do it for me, dropping a like goes, like I said, an astronomically long way. Anyways, without further ado, let's hop into a really fun hand in the last hand of the session. I find myself in the hijack. This is the very next hand, you know, the very next shuffle from the 7 deuce hand prior. We look down at pocket nines, make it $30 to go. The same player from the last hand decides to 3-bet me here as he now finds himself in position. He makes it $75 to go. This is just a ridiculous sizing, in position even. You you got to go 3x, especially in a cash game. We're all playing 150, 200, 300 big blinds deep at some points. Just not it. That's not the right size. Anyways, that small sizing allows a big blind to cold call, and I find myself in a pretty easy just call spot. Looking to set mine here. Let's see if we can bad beat somebody, and the poker gods are here to answer our prayers today. The flop comes 9-6-5, bingo, bango, bongo. That's what the heck I'm talking about. All right, now we can go a couple of different ways, but all of those things are absolutely tarnished. When the big blind decides to lead out for about half pot or whatever for 150 bucks, what the hell is going on here? What, like, seriously, what is going on? This recreational OMC that these two foes of today's vlog have been really doing some funny things. Anyways, I feel like, you know, raising would be slightly overplaying my hand. I want to incentivize the initial raiser, or the initial 3-better, excuse me, to stay in the hand. So I end up just calling here, considering there's no flush draw, and this, again, not a board that really should hit any of us too crazily, except for me with the sets, I guess. Anyways, initial raiser or 3-better makes the call as well, and we're going 3 ways off to a turn card that peels off a king of clubs. Feels like deja vu from when we flopped top set before. Another king of clubs, another meh card. I mean, kings can definitely be in the 3-better's range, especially when he overcalls on the flop. He obviously has like ace king at worst, and then a bunch of the overpairs beyond that. Anyways, with the action checked over to me, I decide that it's time to go crazy. Not really. I go about half pot. I bet $300 to go, and the 3-better thinks about it for a moment before deciding to just make the call. And the opponent here from the big blind goes deep into the tank, seems to be fighting the inner demons, but eventually decides to fold. All right, we find ourselves going to a river card that is, again, a really horrible run out as it comes a queen. Jack 10 now gets there. For some reason, our opponent's overcalling with the hand that bad, but pocket kings and pocket queens all beat us. Ace king is probably not going to be wanting to make any crazy calls on the river. So I think at this point it's better to just allow my opponent to bluff or to overplay a holding and maybe capitalize by making a call or raise if I see fit. Anyways, I check it over to my opponent and he snap checks it back. Without me telling you what he has here, this is everything that I hate about this hand that I just played. Why am I just calling the flop? This is set up perfectly to put a small, almost like a min click here to allow the initial raiser to just call. Obviously, with his ridiculous sizing pre-flop, he has an overpair, aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens. Those hands are all like little min-clicky hands. People just do really weird things with these things, especially recreational players. And beyond that, on the turn, what are we doing? We gotta go pot. We go crazy when we have, you know, semi-bluffs. What am I doing here? What the hell am I doing? Oh my God, this is when going cheeky goes wrong. This is when I'm the king of getting minimum value here. And I go massive all the time. What the hell am I doing? I'm so frustrated. Watching this clip back is infuriating beyond belief. I can't even speak the English language correctly. Anyways, our opponent ends up showing pocket aces. Sure, I don't mind my check on the river. It's not bad. Like, it's credible. I think he's going to be betting ace kings sometimes, and then obviously bluffs sometimes. And I don't want to value own myself against pocket kings or pocket queens. The problem is on the flop and on the turn. What the hell are you doing? The money should have got in some point in this hand. Aces versus a 9-high flop, it's got to get in. But you messed up, Kieran, and you've got no one to blame but yourself. Either way, end up booking a win on today's session. I'm not going to crucify myself for it completely because we did battle back and play some all-right poker. But even with not playing optimum poker, the poker gods bailed us out today. So time to go back to the drawing board, really improve on today's episode. I can't thank you guys enough for the constant support, man. Let's start over to me in person and see how the hell we feel at the end of the session.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is, but I love the pain. Something about the pain, I just love it. Either way, helicopter chase going over just right above me. That's awesome. What just happened, man? What just happened? I am blown away, honestly, at why I keep getting in massive holes early and being forced to battle back, but we find a way. Look, it's not all roses. Obviously, we ended up coming back. We won some key pots. But one thing I have to mention is we just misplayed the very last hand of the session, or the second to last, I don't know, whatever. The pocket nines hand, you guys heard me in the commentary. I just misplayed it. I'm so upset about that. I cannot stress it enough. I think when big blind just donk leads for whatever 150 it was, like just a big sizing or whatever it was, half sizing, half pot or 2/3 pot, whatever the heck it was, it's just a clear-cut spot to raise. I'm in a pot with top set, the effective nuts against the 2 recreationals in the game. There's no reason in the world for me to slow play that, and I'm so frustrated with myself for that, but I'm happy that I was able to claw out. So you've heard me enough in the commentary talk about how much I didn't like that, but the main point being, man, I'm so freaking happy. I was so frustrated with my play early on. Even then, like, the only hand that I really am upset at is the pocket 9s hand that we won, and the two hands we flop sets, the 9s and the jacks. Jacks, I think I just got to find a fold there. It sucks. It's a hero fold. I'm disappointed that I made the call, but if I'm being totally honest, I know that the vlog played some form of a factor. I didn't want to fold and get called a nit or whatever. I'm disappointed in myself. I expect better for myself, and I know I can make that fold. I've made it in the past, and I should have found it. Appreciate you guys as always for constantly supporting these videos. Do me a massive favor, guys. If we can just hit 1,000 likes on this video, I know it's a great deal, a massive task to ask, but it would mean so much to me. The amount of work, the effort, the time, just the time, the sheer time that it takes to put these things together, myself and Mike included, I'd be forever grateful. And not only that, if you guys ever want to play with me, like I said, click the link in the top of the description. It's been a really fun time as of late, pretty much is every time. Get this video to 1,000 likes, and I promise I'll bring back 3 times a week upload. Otherwise, man, I'm just happy. I feel great. It's a relief. I get to go get some late night bowling. It's not even late, it's like 9:30. I feel great. I need to get the heck out of here, enjoy some time, do some fun things, and I'll see you guys soon. Stay happy, stay healthy, and more importantly, guys, run good at the tables. Deuces.